Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today? It's Joe from PrepAgent. Let me know if you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up, and we'll get started. What do you guys think? Friday? Is everybody excited for Friday? Shane gives me a thumbs up. Good. Loud and clear. Excellent. Sounds good, everybody. So just as a reminder for everybody, make sure your settings are in 720 HD. And I also want to remind everybody that if for some reason my Wi-Fi goes down or something happens when Adrian and I do a webinar, just refresh your page and it'll come back. Okay, we'll do the best we can. But sometimes when that happens, you just got to refresh and you'll be okay. All right. So who was with our webinar yesterday? Who was there yesterday? Who was at the webinar yesterday? What do you guys think? Anybody at the webinar yesterday? Okay, Salma was. So we were singing some songs yesterday by Julie Andrews, but we forgot an important song. Anybody know what song that was? Who knows an important song that we forgot? Anybody? 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 So important song that I forgot, okay, is yesterday was Adrian's birthday. Yesterday was Adrian's birthday, and we forgot to sing him happy birthday. So everybody, ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Adrian. Happy birthday to you. Okay, there it is. All right, now that's out of the way. But we always want to wish Adrian a happy birthday. It was his birthday yesterday, and I forgot to mention on the webinar. Isn't that great? He still showed up on the chat. He was there to support us even on his birthday. What a trooper. Do you guys remember when you were little, if the world didn't stop for you on your birthday, you'd be super angry about that? Shane says, how old? Somewhere between 20 and 80. That's how old he is. Somewhere in that range, between 20 and 80. Okay. So for right now, we are talking about practice and disclosure. Practice and disclosure. Okay, so when we talk about practice or disclosure, just a general rule for you guys, whenever you're not sure, always disclose. Okay, that applies for the exam, but also applies for real life. What does your mother always say? Honesty is the best policy. So there's different types of misrepresentation and different types of fraud, but if you honestly disclose everything, typically you're free from any of that. Here's a question for you guys. Okay, if you guys know the answer to this, I'll be very impressed. There's different types of fraud. What kind of fraud is it when you know something, but you don't mention it? In other words, you're just silent about that material fact. So there's a material factor where, for example, a leaky roof, and you know it, but you just don't say anything. You don't verbalize anything. You don't outright lie, okay? But you don't say anything. You purposely say nothing. So what that would be called is negative fraud. Negative fraud. Actual fraud is when you're actually lying, like you're verbally stating it. Okay? So you're verbally stating it. Constructive fraud is like a big oops, you messed up. Okay, everybody see the difference here? That's a tough one. That was a tough one. We started off today with a tough question. Okay, now, if there is fraud on the property, does that make the contract void, voidable, or valid? What do you guys think? If there is fraud on your property, does that make the contract void, voidable, or valid? What do you guys think? Okay, that would make it voidable. Because if somebody commits fraud, for whatever reason, that shouldn't stop you from your ability to go through with the purchase of the property. Does that make sense, guys? That shouldn't stop you from your ability to follow through with the purchase of the property. Okay, let's look at the first question on the board. Which of the following are covered under the Fair Housing Act? A, vacant land intended for residential use. B, all of the other options are correct under the Fair Housing Act. C, houses. D, apartments. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? And the answer is all the other options are correct. So basically, fair housing is covered for residential property. Without getting into the details of that, because obviously there are details that go across different types of property. So I want you guys to remember something. And this is a general rule that can help you pass your exam. Okay? Everybody ready for this? Everybody right? I'm ready. So I'm going to give you a general rule. It's not an absolute rule. Like I said, there's always exceptions. But this is a general rule. And I give you these general rules for when you're not sure as a way to kind of narrow down things to make your way to the correct answer on your exam. Okay, everybody ready? Right, ready. Joe's hint of the day. Okay, so my hint of the day would be, remember that this is a residential real estate exam. Now, I know technically it applies to many different types of license, and you can use this license for commercial real estate and different types of real estate. I didn't mean different types of license. I meant different types of real estate. You could use this license for many different types of real estate. But at its core, they really made this exam to protect your average home buyer. People who are buying a home for the first time, who don't really know a lot about proper disclosures, things with contracts, loans, things of that nature. Okay? Has everybody got that? So it's really, this test is designed to protect your average home buyer. Okay? Why do I say that? Well, I say that so when you see questions on your exam, typically you want to think of the answer that's more geared towards residential. Okay? To protect your average home buyer. For example, have you guys ever heard the term caveat emptor? Caveat emptor? What does caveat emptor mean? Anybody ever heard of that before? What do you guys think? Caveat emptor. So caveat emptor is Latin for buyer beware. That means you have to care for the person buying, but caveat emptor does not apply for residential real estate. Okay? Why? Because they're protected. They're protected. Residential real estate, when somebody buys a home, they're protected by certain laws that indicate you got to take care of that person buying the property, even protect them from their own ignorance. Okay? Whereas commercial real estate, okay, you could argue they should know better because it's their business. And that's just an example of something that could apply to residential, but not to commercial. All right, everybody got that? So hopefully that little hint will help you guys as you prepare for your exam. When you really think about why they're preparing this exam, why the whole reason they're preparing. They're not preparing it to protect people from people who are buying like big, construction developments or things like that. They're preparing this exam to protect the average person who's buying a home for the first time. Okay, let's move on to the next question. A seller refuses to provide a seller's property disclosure to the buyer. What could the listing agent do in this situation? A, provide the buyer with a disclaimer signed by the seller. B, provide the buyer with a disclaimer signed by the supervising principal broker. C, offer to provide a filled out disclosure to the best of their ability. Or D, provide the buyer with a disclaimer without the seller's signature. I'll read it again. A seller refused to provide a seller's property disclosure to a buyer. What could the listing agent do in this situation? A, provide the buyer with a disclaimer signed by the seller. B, provide the buyer with a disclaimer signed by the supervising principal broker. C, offer to provide a filled out disclosure to the best of their ability. Or D, provide the buyer with a disclaimer without the seller's signature. And the answer is A, provide the buyer with a disclaimer signed by the seller. Okay, so in all you guys' states, they may do it in a different way, but there's always some form for a seller to disclose. How many of you guys use the transfer disclosure statement? Any of you guys use the transfer disclosure statement in your state? As I said, they may call it different things, may have different ways of going about it, but there's always going to be some form in every state, wherever you are, where the seller, okay, has to write out a disclosure for everything that needs to be done. How many of you guys have that transfer disclosure? So you guys all aware of that? So they need to disclose what's wrong with the property. And it gets tricky when the agent knows that the seller's not disclosing something. Then they have a duty of honesty. Remember, they have the fiduciary duty to the seller, but they have a duty of honesty and fairness to the buyer. We once talked when we did agency about the difference between client and customer, right guys? So you owe that fiduciary duty to your client, but you still have to be honest with the customer. So if you know your seller's lying to the buyer, you can't just be like, well, I don't have a fiduciary relationship with the buyer, so screw them. You can't do that. Has everybody got that? Maybe right, got it. Okay, moving right along to another question. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 prohibits A, all of the other options are correct, B, discrimination against mentally challenged persons, C, discrimination against religious groups, or D, discrimination based on race. So I'll read it again. The Civil Rights Act of 1866, A, all of the other options are correct, B, discriminating against mentally challenged persons, or C, discriminating against religious groups, or D, discriminating based on race. And the answer is discriminated based on race. So did the Civil Rights Act of 1866 include gender equality? Women have the same rights as men? That's a question for you guys. Did the Civil Rights Act of 1866 include gender equality? What do you guys think? And the answer is no. You guys got to think your time in history. Okay? The movement for gender equality was probably not for another 100 years after this. What was going on around 1866? That was the time of the Civil War, right, guys? And this does come up on your real estate exam a little bit. Okay? Yeah, so it was the Civil War, we had slavery, all those things were going on. After this came the 13th Amendment. Do you guys know what the 13th Amendment is? What's the 13th Amendment? What was the 13th Amendment? The 13th Amendment was the amendment that abolished slavery. It abolished slavery in the U.S., okay? So that's what was going on then, all right? It did incorporate certain property rights and rights to ownership, okay? But it was still only for men at that time. Okay, isn't it crazy that gender equality only came around 100 years after that? A little nutty, right, guys? Okay. The illegal practice of directing minorities to areas populated by the same race or religion is called A, steering, B, redlining, C, blockbusting, or D, panic peddling. I'll read it again. The illegal practice of directing minorities to areas populated by the same race or religion is called A, steering, B, redlining, C, blockbusting, or D, panic peddling. And the answer is steering. So this is a fair housing violation. What year did federal fair housing come into law? What year did federal fair housing come into law, which was much more inclusive than what happened in 1866? What year? So that would be 1968. 1968. Good. So when we had the federal fair housing, you heard certain terms come up, the ones on the board: steering, redlining, blockbusting, and panic peddling. Okay, so what is steering? What is steering? So these are all forms of discrimination, but what's the difference between them? What's the difference between the ones on the board? So what is steering? There's an easy way to remember this. What do you guys think? So steering is when you're directing buyers to certain areas based upon their race, religion, ethnicity, things of that nature. Why is it easy to remember? You think you're steering a car. Just remember, you drive buyers around. So you're driving them in a car. Okay? As opposed to blockbusting or panic peddling, which is the same thing, which has to do with sellers. Okay? That is when you tell people to sell because people of certain ethnic groups, minorities, race, religion, etc. are moving to town. What I always like to say is panic peddling is when you say you better sell because those people are moving to town. You don't want to live by those people, do you? Right? So that would be a fair housing violation. Okay, we got that? And redlining is for what? What is redlining for? What do you guys think redlining is all about? Who could tell me what is redlining all about? So redlining has to do with doing loans. Basically, they drew a red line around a map and said, don't loan to that area. And they picked that area because they felt that area had a lot of people of a certain, ethnic group or a certain religion or things of that nature. Okay, so that's the difference between those things. Anybody you guys got plans for the weekend? Who's going to open houses? I always say this. I don't know if you guys actually do it, though. You guys should be going to open houses while you're studying. Keeps you motivated, lets you know what's going on in the area, gets you some contacts, get you a little familiar with who's who. Maybe it'll even help you decide on which broker to go with. Kind of just get your feet wet before you start selling. It's like the warm-up before you enter the race. I mean, the reality is you guys should enjoy going to the open houses. If you don't enjoy going to the open houses, then you might be in the wrong business. It should be fun to go to open houses. Obviously, this is for those of you who want to sell residential. But I know you guys are studying, but I really recommend taking a break from that studying to go to those open houses. It'll kind of remind you why you're doing it. And you'll say to yourself, I'm studying, but this is something I really want to do. Or you'll be like, I'm studying, and be like, ugh, I don't want to do this. What am I doing? Okay. If a deed has a restrictive covenant which prohibits the sale of the property to persons of a particular race, that covenant will A, provide the grantor to power to enforce the covenant, B, provide the grantee to power to void the conveyance, C, invalidate the conveyance, or D, have no effect on the conveyance, but the covenant will be unenforceable. What do you guys think? Nancy says, can we go to a broker's open when we are not licensed? Yes, why wouldn't you? You don't need a license to look at a house. Don't people go to open houses all the time? All those brokers, if you guys don't know, what Nancy's referring to, and I believe what Nancy's referring to, is you have open house on Sundays, but then you also have brokers open. Okay, some areas call them the caravan. Well, they have during the week. Well, they'll have open houses just for the brokers, but they're trying to sell a house, so they don't care who's coming in. That's not a licensed activity. It's just a custom in an area. Okay, and the answer here is D. It's D. Okay, it wouldn't void the conveyance because that person who's being discriminated against should still have the ability to go through with the property. So they could still have the conveyance, all right? Does this make sense for everybody? A lot of people get this wrong. They still have the conveyance, okay? Meaning they could still get that property. It's just that one aspect that's discriminatory is unenforceable. They can't do anything about it. Whereas the other options would say, oh, you're being discriminated against, so guess what? You can't get the property because this person's being discriminatory. Everybody see how that works? So they can't go through with that part that is discriminatory, but they can go through with taking possession of the property. So you guys got to be careful on questions like that. It could be a little tricky. Anybody else think that's a little tricky? Okay. I think we did that one already. Okay, Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, also known as the Federal Fair Housing Act, prohibits discrimination in which of the following categories? A. Escrow, closing, and title insurance and selling single-family residence. B. The sale of homes, home loan lending, and title insurance. C. The sale of homes and home lending. Or D. Title insurance, home loan lending, and selling single-family homes. What do you guys think? And the answer is the sale of homes and home lending. By the way, do not forget about referral program. Adrian, if you would not mind putting a link to that referral program. I know it could be hard getting your business off the ground. Money can be tight. And some of you guys are referring us business, which we appreciate. But if you are referring us business, we want to give you credit for that, and otherwise known as give you money. Okay? So if you guys enjoy our product and other people are studying and you're referring people to us, like in your class, you're recommending it, why not get some money for it? So we'd like to send you some money for that. So make sure you sign up for the referral program. Like I said, I know a lot of you guys refer business to us. And so I want to make sure you guys get compensated for that. And maybe that'll take off a little bit of the hurt in starting a new business. Okay. Which of the following actions by a salesperson would be grounds for the real estate commission to revoke his or her salesperson's license? A. Depositing a buyer's earnest money into a personal bank account. B. Attempting to represent a buyer. C. Showing a property listed with a broker with whom the salesperson has no affiliation. Or D. Entering into an exclusive listing contract with the seller. Now I'll read it again. Which of the following actions by a salesperson would be grounds for the real estate commission to revoke his or her salesperson license? A. Depositing a buyer's earnest money into a personal bank account. B. Attempting to represent a buyer. C. Showing a property listed with a broker with whom the salesperson has no affiliation. Or D. Entering into an exclusive listing contract with the seller. And the answer is A. A minority couple asks a broker to show them a listed house. What is the broker guilty of if the broker suggests that they look at a house in the areas with larger minority populations than that of the listed house? A. Panic peddling. B. Blockbusting. C. Redlining. Or D. Steering. I'll read it again. A minority couple asks a broker to show them a listed house. What is the broker guilty of if the broker suggests that they look at the houses in areas with larger minority populations than that of listed houses? A. Panic peddling. B. Blockbusting. C. Redlining. Or D. Steering. Okay, we did this before. And the answer is steering. An agreement that ends all future lessor-lessee obligations under a lease is called A, an assumption, B, a breach, C, a surrender, D, a novation. An agreement that ends all a novation. And the answer here is C, a surrender. Oh, it looks like Adrian wrote an excellent definition. I'll read it out loud. Commingling is mixing your money with the clients. Conversion is using it. I want to read that out loud, so make sure everybody sees what he wrote. It's a really good definition. You guys should know the difference there. Difference between commingling and conversion. Commingling is mixing money. Conversion is not just mixing it, but taking it and using it. Okay. I think we did this before, but let's just do it again really quick. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 prohibits discrimination in housing based on which of the following reason: marital status, religion, race, or sex. So we didn't do this exact question. We just did one that was very similar. So we should all get this right. We did one that was very similar. Okay, and the answer is race. A developer, to avoid discrimination, instructed his sales staff give special preference to women who want to purchase, and two, set aside the same number of homes for each ethnic group. Which answers best describe these policies? A, both policies are non-discriminatory. B, both policies are discriminatory and therefore illegal. Or C, the first policy is legal. Or D, the second policy is illegal. And the answer is B, both policies are discriminatory and therefore illegal. Okay, blockbusting occurs when A, the broker uses racial fears to prompt people in a changing neighborhood to sell their homes. B, a broker shows houses to prospective buyers only in certain areas. C, a lending institution does not make loans in a certain part of the city. Or D, one lending institution buys all the houses on the block. Okay, so what's the answer there? The answer is A. I want to try something. I want to get your guys' feedback. I'm going to try opening my window here, see if it sounds any better. Let me know if it sounds any better. Okay, I want to try this. Okay, I just opened the window. Does it sound different or better? What do you guys think? Does it sound exactly the same to you guys? I don't know if you guys could hear it. Okay, good. If that sounds good, that'll be excellent. So I don't feel like I'm locked in. Me and my dog. Oh, so Drew says it sounds even better, less echo. Cool. Thanks, guys. All right. A broker is found guilty of steering. What did the broker do? A, without asking, she sold properties in a predominantly Asian community because the buyers were Asian. B, she told the buyers what price to offer. C, before showing properties, she asked the buyers in what areas they wanted to see the properties. Or D, she insisted on driving the buyers to each property shown. Okay, and the answer is A. Gordito will be very excited. That's what we call my dog, Gordito. Gordo. Window open. Okay. A second offer made on a property prior to the seller's decision on the first offer should be A, submitted to the seller immediately. That's right, Marisol. He's a little fatty. She nailed it. Okay, B, rejected by the broker. C, return to the offer if it does not provide better terms than the first offer. Or D, held pending a decision on the first offer. What do you guys think? And the answer is A, submitted to the seller immediately. Okay, which of the following best describes conversion? This is the one Adrian went over before with you guys in the chat. So which of the following best describes conversion? A, using funds from a client's trust account for personal use. B, adding personal funds into a business account. C, accepting and depositing money into a client's trust account. Or D, using funds from a business account for personal use. So which of the following best describes conversion? A, using funds from a client's trust account for personal use. B, adding personal funds into a business account. C, accepting and depositing money to client's trust account. Or D, using funds from a business account for personal use. And the answer is A, using funds from a client's trust account for personal use. Remember, Adrian said commingling's mixing the money, conversions when you actually use that money. Big no-no, obviously. Okay. If an advertisement is placed in a newspaper advertising a house for sale and only the APR is stated, A, total finance charges must be included. B, the amount of the down payment must be included. C, additional disclosures are not required. Or D, number of payments must be included. If an advertisement is placed in a newspaper advertising a house for sale and only the APR is stated, A, total finance charges must be included. B, the amount of the down payment must be included. C, additional disclosures are not required. Or D, number of payments must be included. And the answer is C, additional disclosures are not required. All right, guys, that's it for today. I hope you have a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday, of course. So I hope you guys keep studying. And we will see you then. This is Joe with Adrian from PrepAgent. Have an amazing weekend, everybody. Bye.